Welcome back to Which is the Moon. I'm your Monday hostess, Natalie, and this week's topic is choose your own topic. And I'll be honest with you, I kind of struggled with this topic a little bit because I wasn't sure what I wanted to cover. I hadn't had a chance to give it a whole lot of thought, and I wanted to pick something that was something that we haven't covered 100 times over in other seasons. So it took me a while to kind of come to an idea of something that I could cover that would be informative and educational without being something that's been rehashed a million times, at least not on Which is the Moon. So I decided to cover the topic of pathworking. Now, according to Aidan McCoy in her book Advanced Witchcraft, pathworking is something that when you are in a coven, it is covered within your first year and a day. Now, I can tell you that in my personal year and a day studies as a solitary, pathworking was not something that was explicitly discussed in a lot of the books that I was reading. So it wasn't until I read her Advanced Witchcraft that the term pathworking came up, although I kind of heard it from other people like Benabel Wen. So what is pathworking exactly? Well, according to Alex Sumner in his article, Pathworking in the Kabbalistic Tree of Life, which is found in the Journal of Western Tradition, Western Mystery Tradition, the Journal of Western Mystery Tradition, it's the autumnal 2005 edition. He states that, and I'm quoting here, pathworking is the art of clairvoyantly investigating the paths of the tree of life. Now, there are 22 recognized paths, and what confused me about that when I was reading Ms. McCoy's book is that she starts out numbering the paths from 21 up. Now, it's my understanding from some study and research that I've been doing that, and Mr. Sumner backs that up in his article, that pathworking in terms of the Western tradition of occult practices really didn't come around, or that term wasn't really used until the late 19th century with the Order of the Golden Dawn. And the Stella Matutina, I believe is how you pronounce it, was one of the offshoots of the Golden Dawn, and they're the ones that began to really actively use pathworking as a way to develop spiritually. So what is the purpose of pathworking? Why would you want to do this? Well, what pathworking is it is a method of traveling, in this case through the Kabbalistic Tree of Life, the various paths. You enter one area and you travel through to the other. You have what's called the lightning of creation, where you start at the top and you come down. And I'm not going to get into technicalities about the names of the different parts of the Tree of Life, because I want to talk about other types of pathworking, because there are other types of pathworking. But basically, a lot of people choose to use the tarot, and it's related to different paths on the Tree of Life, all the cards of the major arcana, and so you're going through that. And that brings me to Arwen's book, Mapping the Hero's Journey by Arwen Lynch Poe. If you're not familiar with that book, you might want to pick up a copy and have it in your library, because basically what she's talking about is a form of pathworking with the tarot. The tarot represents one's journey through life, our path that we take, the lessons that we learn, the mistakes that we make, the things that we do, because like it or not, you don't learn from what you get right, you learn from what you get wrong. There's another book called Pathworking the Tarot by Lisa Robertson, and that's published by Llewellyn Books. So if you are wanting to look at that, in terms of using tarot as a pathworking device, you can do that. You can do that incorporated in the Kabbalistic Tree of Life, as Mr. Sumner describes in his article. It was an interesting article, and I recommend that you pick it up. But that's not the only type of pathworking that there is. What I have come to the conclusion about in my studies is that pathworking is any methodology of deep meditation in which you are entering into an altered state of being to meet with spirit guides who are there to give you wisdom journey, whether it be your physical spiritual guides from the fifth dimension, your fifth dimensional self, or from your ancestors. Now, Ms. McCoy in her book talks about how when you are doing pathworking, sometimes we kind of skew off a little bit. We might become distracted by some of the guides that we meet, and that's normal, and she says not to feel guilty about it, but make sure that you don't allow them to take you so far off your path that you forget your purpose in path working, which is to gain wisdom. Path working is a way of gaining spiritual wisdom and growth in terms of understanding this vast universe that we live in and the path that you're currently on. Now, there are other forms of path working. Some people will do guided meditations, which Mr. Sumner talks about, because Dion Fortune, he stated that she liked he liked, I know I should know that, sorry, I'm pretty sure Dion Fortune was a woman. Miss Fortune was in favor of guided meditations to an extent. However, she felt like the person who's doing the guided meditation, which was probably the leader of your coven, your high priest or high priestess, should give that person, when you're doing a guided meditation, the person who's guiding you in the meditation is acting as the Hierophant, the person who has a higher spiritual knowledge that they're trying to impart to you by guiding you through this path of personal growth. And Miss Fortune felt that that was good up to a point, but that it was important that the person have moments where they can explore the wisdom that they're gaining on their own. Because again, if you're being told what to think, then you're not really growing, right? And I agree with that perspective. I think that that's absolutely true. When you are simply following someone else's beliefs and you're taking what that person says without any question or flaw, to me, you're joining a cult. So when you are doing this type of work, you want to grow. Now, path working using tarot is a great way to do that, because again, the major arcana represents the major points in our life where we find this growth, whether we're dealing with some sort of an addiction or a problem that we can't get past, like with the Devil card, or when you're having to make a choice between two things, like with the Lover's card, when you're in a state of movement, like with either the Chariot or the Wheel of Fortune, when things are moving up and moving down, your life is a cycle. And so using those messages to interpret your path and to gain deeper knowledge is an excellent method. But other types of guided meditations are also useful for that. Also, when you're using the tarot for path working, you need to pay attention to which system you're using. Are you using the Crowley esoteric system, or are you using the Rider-Waite system? Because they do differ slightly, and so having that strong understanding of the two systems and how they operate can work, which is why I've been personally using Benabel Wen's Spirit Keepers Tarot for my personal journey, because she does a wonderful job of blending the two systems. And in her book of maps, she talks about how the two systems vary and why she chose the images that she chose for her cards and what it means, and how she's kind of drawing those two systems together, and she does it seamlessly and beautifully. Now, in her original video series for the Spirit Keepers Tarot, the last video, video 18, was path working and astral travel with the Spirit Keepers Tarot. So that might be something that you might want to go back and look at as well, because she's got a very strong insight. She's been doing this kind of work all of her life, and so I gain a lot of wisdom from her in terms of guidance, because as a solitary, you don't have the benefit of a coven to guide you in that journey. And I say guide because they're not leading you. They're guiding you through the steps that you need in order to reach your own conclusions and to grow. And so I really like that, because I find that some of those meditations help because I don't know where I'm going. When I first took a look at the Kabbalistic Tree of Life, and I'm trying to incorporate that in my mind in terms of path working, I'm looking at the numbers here. It didn't make a lot of sense to me, and part of it's that I don't speak Hebrew, because the Kabbalistic Tree of Life, of course, comes from the Jewish tradition, so it's in Hebrew. So you're kind of looking at that going, well, gosh, I don't know what any of this means. With a little bit of study, you can figure out what the different points mean, and you'll understand those paths that you take, because they form different shapes. You can go in the shape of the pentacle, you can do the lightning bolt of creation. You're going from one point to the other, and during those points, you are in your mind, in the astral, meeting with your guides who are imparting information to you. When you are doing path working that's not guided or led in some way, it is important to know that not everything that you meet along your path is there to impart that wisdom. Some things are there to distract you and to keep you from that personal growth for whatever purpose. You know, there's always a balance in the universe. So what helps you grow, there's other things that are there to keep you stagnant. We have to always have that kind of pull within the universe. And so bear that in mind when you're doing this path working, because you don't want to become too distracted by something that just seems interesting or an offshoot or something. But that's not to say that you shouldn't explore all paths of who you are, because ultimately path working is a journey of figuring out who you are as a spiritual being. Now, another method of path working, in my opinion, and this is strictly my opinion, there are people who may disagree with this, is any kind of work you do with the Akashic records. So if you have someone such as myself enter your Akashic record to do a reading and a clearing for you to figure out where negative karma may be, what's going on, where your soul's been, what you've been doing, not just in this plane, but in previous planes and in the astral, because as above, so below, you need to remember that that is also a form of path working. Anything that you do to forward your spiritual growth and move your path forward is a method of spiritual growth. So that's just something to keep in mind. Now, other forms and traditions of path working would include, in my opinion, once again, some of the Buddhist meditations, some of the traditions that they go through in their initiation processes. They're doing path working. When you watch this is a terrible example, but when you watch the show Kung Fu, he's on a journey. He is path working. He's learning his path. He spent years studying under the guidance of someone, and now he's on his own path to incorporate that. Because study is wonderful, but if you're not incorporating that into your daily life, then you're not really advancing yourself, which is another point that Ms. McCoy makes in her book, Advanced Witchcraft. One of the things that she talks about at the very beginning of the book when she's trying to define what is an advanced witch is that she asked a lot of other people she considered advanced practitioners, what does it mean to you to be an advanced witch? And one of the responses that rang for me, because it's exactly what I was thinking in my head, is that you have reached that point in your path when these kinds of practices are second nature to you. You do them in some respect or other without even thinking about it. It's become incorporated into your daily life. You are doing your spellcraft without having to have any tools at all, because it's all coming from within you, which is where your true power lies. Tools are fantastic. Tools on path working are also fantastic. So I'm not knocking the use of tools in path working, because they can be valuable. They help you to focus your intent and your energy. But it's when you reach the point in the path that you no longer need that, when you can journey within the path working on your own, because path working is not something you should do once and think you're done with it. Again, the Kabbalistic Tree of Life has 22 different paths with 22 different starting and ending points, and there's probably an infinite number of combinations in between there that you could explore on your own. So it's one of those things where you definitely want to keep your mind open. Now, other traditions, again, I was talking about the Buddhist traditions where they are studying. Also, you have the Native American traditions of vision quests. To me, that's extreme path working. When they're in the sweat lodge, they're taking a vision quest and they are traveling in that deep meditative state, sometimes with the aid of something to help alter that meditative state of being. That is a form of path working. So path working, I don't want you to think is some sort of new idea. It's definitely not a new idea. Any coming of age tradition in an indigenous lifestyle is a path working. It is simply a way for you to meet up with those who are here to impart you wisdom and to grow spiritually as a person. So that's my take on path working. I recommend that you explore some of the resources that I've mentioned in this video. I'll try to put the link to Benabelle's video in the bottom in the down bar. If I can put the link to Mr. Sumner's article, I'll do that. If not, again, the name of the article is Pathworking with the Kabbalistic Tree of Life, and it's in the the Journal of Western Mystery Tradition. I don't know, I can't figure that out. It is number 3, volume 1, Autumnal Equinox 2002. There was another one, teachingsonthepath.com. That might be something to look into. Apparently they offer some classes and they do some guided meditations and path working there. So if that's something you're wanting to do more of, that might be a good resource for you to explore. So again, thank you so much for watching, and I hope that this video has brought some new level of knowledge to your path. Thank you and blessed be. You see, my problem is that I don't really script these little puppies out, so I know that there's something I'm going to forget. And I know exactly what it is. I forgot when somebody opened the door, and I'm not sure who it was. I think it was my husband, but when somebody kind of peeked in there to see if I was still recording, it kind of threw me off my game, and I totally forgot to mention that one of the other methods of path working are mazes. A lot of times you'll see like rock formations that go in a circle, or those big garden mazes. Those were used for path working often and still are. It's a way to solve the puzzle to get out to the other side. And in doing that, you kind of go through this sort of spiritual, physical metamorphosis. It can actually make you a little nutso if you get stuck in one of those, because it seems like no matter where you turn, everything looks the same. So, some people will make like a stone kind of pathway, and this brought me to an interesting archetype that I wanted to mention, something that everyone will be familiar with. Think back to the movie The Wizard of Oz. She's walking the yellow brick road, and it starts out as a small spiral, and it gets bigger, and it leads her on this journey where she meets her various guides. That book was an allegory for path working. In the end, she finds that her happiness is exactly where she thought it to be, which was at home, where she felt safe and comfortable, something she'd been taking for granted. So that entire book, in my opinion, is an allegory for path working journey in which someone finds that home sweet home is indeed home sweet home, that those that are around you that love you are those that will always be there to guide you. Because when you think about it, when she comes back to consciousness in Kansas, the people around her were the spirit guides that she met along her path. The Cowardly Lion, Ray Bolger, the Scarecrow, all of those things. So Buddy Ebsen, who played the Tin Man, he was there. They were all the farmhands who were helping her uncle. These were her family, and these were people that she met. So sometimes your spirit guides are going to be familiar to you. It's not going to be some unknown person. So keep that in mind, because your spirit guides are often going to be people that are familiar to you, or they will appear to you as someone that you know, so that you would be more comforted in taking advice from them. But mazes and the little rock pathways, a lot of people will set those up in their backyard, or they'll find one of those in a park and use that methodology as you're watching yourself walk that path. That is also a method of path working, and it's one that I forgot to mention, and I'm so terribly sorry. So please forgive me, but again, I encourage questions and comments. This is something that I'm kind of trying to do myself. It's difficult because path working is something that takes time, and I don't always have the time or the privacy or the solitude required to effectively path work. So if path working is something you are interested in doing, it's going to require some commitment on your part, and on the part of whoever you're going to have guide you, if anyone at all. If it's something you're going to do on your own, that's perfectly okay. It's just that it's going to require some time commitment and some solitude. And like in my lifestyle, that's not going to happen anytime soon. I can't even do a 15-minute video without somebody walking in to see what the hell I'm doing. So just keep that in mind, folks. And I hope y'all have a wonderful day. Blessed be.